Hello, everybody. Welcome into the Casual Sports Podcast. So, after I missed 2 weeks of the show, I make it back yesterday. Tell everybody that, hey, we might have a full crew on Friday. Well, here I am, all alone. Jinx that one. Just a little bit. Both Matt and Mike off the show today. Just gonna be me. So it turns out. So get your popcorn, grab some coffee or whatever you'd like, and let's get the show on the road. I'm going to pick up where we left off yesterday talking about NBA free agency. So as we left off the show, talking Kevin Durant wanted to trade out of Brooklyn. Kyrie Irving, to no one's surprise, has jumped on that as well. Right now, his goals seem to be going towards Los Angeles, which makes sense for him. Go back to LeBron James. You got your title working with him. He clearly shows no loyalty to a single town. You've seen that throughout his entire career. Cleveland, Boston. I mean, he re-signs with the Nets only to 4 days later demand a trade as well. So you're not worried about the loyalty part with Kyrie Irving. He's going to go and try and win a championship. It makes sense from his standpoint. I think he's faced a lot of criticism these last couple of years, not being able to win a title on his own. It makes sense to me to try and go back to, what got you started, what got you the right to get these big contracts that he's been getting. Because if you look at Kyrie Irving these last 5 years since he left Cleveland, I don't even know if it's been that long, actually. But these last couple of years since he's left Cleveland, does he really deserve these max contracts that he's getting? And I think a lot of people, including myself, would kind of say no, because I know we're getting a lot of guys right now that are getting max contracts based on stats alone. I don't like that. Max contracts should be reserved for players who help you win. And your stats are a part of that. But at the end of the day, Nikola Jokic just got the biggest contract in NBA history. 5 years, I think $270 million plus. What has he done so far? Individual awards. Yes, he's done that. But has he shown he has the ability to take a team from this to a championship? No. And yeah, blame it. He doesn't have a great team. We've had some super teams come through. But he's done great individually. Not this and that. I like him. Really great player. Does he deserve a supermax? Do all these other guys deserve a supermax contract? No. These guys are getting supermax contracts just because they have a pretty darn good agent. And if I had a good agent like that, hell yeah, I'd want that money too. So I'm not blaming these athletes for trying to get this. But, I mean, we got Bradley Beal just signed yesterday, pretty much right after the show. Re-signed a 5-year, $250 million max contract to stay with Washington. What has Bradley Beal done in the last 5 years to deserve that? On his last contract, how many games did he even play? He spent half of that last contract injured. And that's not on, you don't want to, go, oh, well, you were injured the whole time, so we're not going to pay you, because that's not right. But at the same time, you got a guy that just spent 4 years of a contract injured. Why am I going to pay him a supermax contract that you might not even get to use him for? I mean, you're going to be giving this guy almost $50 million a year to potentially sit on the bench. Same thing I was criticizing Cleveland with when we gave Kevin Love a big contract. Yeah, he deserved a big contract. But then you also spent 3 of those years on the bench because he was injured. When you got an injury-prone guy, you don't give them the biggest contract possible because you're probably not getting your value back. So there's my opening thought on this. But yeah, Bradley Beal re-signed with Washington. I was a little surprised at this. I thought potentially this was a chance to move on from the Bradley Beal, John Wall era. Those two were a great duo. Obviously, John Wall's been gone a couple of years. We're going to get to what happened with him later on here in the show. But Bradley Beal, his numbers are great. When he's out there, great numbers guy. But what has Washington done? Even when John Wall was there, this is a team that had so much talent on it and couldn't do a thing. And now they bring him back for 5 years. What makes them think anything's going to change? $250 million to have a barely 500 season. Now, I'm a sports analyst, not a mathematician. I was pretty good at math in high school, but I don't think $50 million a year is worth the results that I think are going to come with it for Washington. Now, I know it's hard to get those big guys, into Washington. It's not a huge free agent location, but at the same time, you draft Johnny Davis in the same position as Bradley Beal, and obviously Beal miles ahead of Johnny Davis at the moment from Wisconsin. We have no idea how that kid's going to turn out, what his NBA future is going to be, but now you bring back shooting guard number one, and you don't allow any chance for Johnny Davis to show that true potential. Probably going to look at maybe an eighth man off the bench when realistically he could be sitting in a sixth man role or even as your starting shooting guard just to try and test the waters, because at this point for Washington, they're really not in a great spot. They had the 10th pick. They were in the lottery with Bradley Beal, and injured again. Not my favorite move by Washington. I like what they've been doing, bringing guys in, but the re-signing of Bradley Beal, I don't think it fits what they've been trying to do here recently in building something new. I understand you want that elite veteran. That's who they want to build around. But much like Portland and Damien Lillard, I know it's the best you got, but at the same time, it still ain't much. Next signing we saw yesterday after the show, Portland Trailblazers guard Anthony Simons has re-signed with a 4-year, $100 million contract, with $25 million a year. Probably a little high, but we definitely saw him contribute pretty well for Portland, and it looks like Portland's just trying to hang on to however much longer they can get this, run to go. They've really been kind of falling apart in recent years. Damian Lillard, unfortunately, just he's not the guy that can carry a team. So at this point, it just feels like they're holding on maybe a little bit too long, but letting things kind of go this course. Anthony Simons is honestly a great guy to kind of build towards the future with. I think he's a strong young guard. Just interested to see what else they do, because Nurkic is on the chopping block, and it looks like they brought him back in as well. But it feels like something needs to make a change up here for Portland if they want to become a contender once again. After that, we saw Bobby Portis returning to Milwaukee. 4-year, $49 million contract. Pretty fair contract, I'd say. I mean, that's what, 13, 14 million a year. He brought some great notice off the bench coming out behind Giannis. We've seen his rebounding ability and his defensive ability really be the reason why he's getting this contract to stay up there in Milwaukee. I like it. It's a good re-signing for Milwaukee, especially if they want to get back to that title position. Daniel House signed a 2-year, $8.5 million contract with the 76ers. 76ers are in a spot right now. They need to make some big moves because they got things going their way right now. We're looking potentially that James Harden's going to re-sign there with a big contract. But, at the same time, what all are they going to get? They brought in they picked up the team option on Shake Milton. Good move, in my opinion. And you bring in Daniel House. One thing, you're going to need some defense to go because, James Harden, not always the defensive guy that you would like to see. He has his moments. He can play good defense. Doesn't always, though. So you're going to need some defense behind that 76ers line. They've moved a lot of guys. We should see a pretty new 76ers roster next year. And interested to see which way that goes. Tyus Jones returned to the Memphis Grizzlies on a $15 million deal. He gets $15 million per year. It's a 2-year deal, so 30 overall. And I like it. Tyus Jones, when Ja Morant went down this entire last season, really stepped up into that point guard position. He's a guy that can shoot from the outside. He can drive. He's got good handles, and he sees the floor really well. I would say probably worth that $15 million. That's probably a good number for your backup point guard in this position, especially when you still got Ja Morant on that rookie, I believe on a rookie deal. I think he still has one more year left on it. Probably looking for an extension next season. Having this short of a deal go on Tyus Jones opens the door to allow that big style of contract out to Ja Morant. Amir Coffey signed with the Clippers, 3-year, $11 million deal. Small thing. They're looking to beef up that depth a little bit. They just brought in John Wall as well, which we're going to get to a little bit later on. Not a great move, but they were doing it just to fill in some room right now. Probably a guy not going to see many minutes. He'll see some, but probably not one that it's going to be a staple of their rotation. Damien Jones signed a 2-year deal with the LA Lakers. Again, not a big name. The Lakers have a lot they need to recover from because you look at what happened with them in this offseason. Last year, they brought in a lot of guys on 1-year contracts. Everyone available: Carmelo, Ariza, DJ Augustine, Kent Bazemore, Avery Bradley, Sekou Doumbouya, Wayne Ellington, Dwight Howard, Mason Jones, Mac McClung, and Malik Monk. All free agents from this team. And they're going to need to bring in some new guys, and Damien Jones is part of that. And at the moment, if the Lakers are going to potentially be moving into a spot to trade for Kyrie Irving, they're going to be picking up a big contract. So we know they have the cap room for here at the moment with all of these free agents gone. I mean, they have half a team right now. But the bad side is they don't have any draft piece, or they don't have any trade pieces because of all these guys that have hit free agency. So look for maybe some sign and trade potentials to work out this trade, bring that salary cap down just a little bit and work with that. Lakers, though, kind of in a desperation mode. You got 3 great players. You got one over there in Brooklyn that wants to come your way, and obviously that seems like a no-brainer if I'm the Lakers right now. Russ gave me absolutely nothing. Kyrie Irving over there, we've seen him with LeBron before. They've won a title before. You're going to put 2 guys with LeBron that have won titles with him. Anthony Davis, obviously won it a couple years ago with LeBron, and Kyrie Irving before that. Everybody knows he won it. So I'm interested to see what the Lakers continue to do here in free agency. Chris Boucher is returning to Toronto Raptors. I like it. They put him on less than $12 million a year for 3 years. That works phenomenally for their cap space, and he does bring a decent amount of value to play the forward spot. Lou Dort will stay in Oklahoma City, 5-year, $87.5 million contract for the Thunder. I like that. Thunder, they're looking towards a rebuild here. Dort's given you some really great minutes so far, some great scoring to go with it. He's shown some flashes. I don't know if he's going to be a superstar that can lead a team entirely, which is why this deal is not a maximum contract. It's not even over $100 million. He's staying, under $20 million a year. That's a great spot to have right now because you're going to be able to build with Lou Dort, a scorer that you found here recently over these next 5 years, and continue to build around him with guys like Pokusevski, Chet Holmgren, and we'll see what else they can get out of it as well. Nick Batum will return to the Clippers. Trevelyan Green has signed with the 76ers. Patty Mills has returned to Brooklyn on a 2-year, $14.5 million contract. He returns, but as we've heard, the Nets have everybody up for grabs. Everybody's on the table to be traded away at this point with, the departure now of Kevin Durant. So we'll see if Patty Mills really is going to stay. I could see it because you look at where he is right now. He's getting paid $7.25 million a year, and he's probably going to be starting point guard. Has a chance with that short of a contract, 2 seasons down the line, to potentially earn himself a bigger deal. So I got a feeling he'll stay in Brooklyn so long as they don't move him. That's what's going to come down to it. Jalen Brunson, maybe the biggest move so far overall here in free agency. Brunson really showed out with the Mavericks. Him and Luka Doncic looked like Dallas was going to have a new tandem here, and no more. We're potentially seeing Jalen Brunson getting moved to the Knicks. Right now, both teams are offering 5-year, $100 million plus deals to go along with it. I'm not sure if he's officially announced if he's getting traded, or not traded, where he's signing. Yes, he did. Pardon me. He signed with the Knicks with a 4-year, $104 million deal. Mavericks offered him 5 years for $106 million. So definitely a big boost for him. If that's me, I'm taking the bigger deal. I know some people probably don't like it, and obviously I'm going to say that most fans are probably going to be like, "Oh, come on, should have stayed with us." But at the same time, someone's offering you that much money, it's hard to say no at that point. So with what's going on, Jalen Brunson probably making the best move for his career. We'll see what pans out in New York. They probably got something building over there. I mean, you're bringing in 18 points a game with Jalen Brunson. If Randall can step up and, their recent draft guys can finally get their legs under them, watch out. They could be right back in the playoffs this year. Nicholas Claxton will also be returning to Brooklyn Nets. I really like this center. He's a young guy. He's going to get paid $10 million. Not the biggest of centers, but we've seen small guys at the center position do just fine in recent years. We're kind of moving away, it seems, again, from everybody having that 7-footer at the rim. So having a smaller guy with a little bit more speed and athleticism, don't think the worst. And I think he's actually a pretty good center. And we've seen him put some good blocks on. Anthony Gill signed a 2-year deal with the Wizards. Orlando Magic guard Gary Harris agreed to a 2-year, $26 million contract extension. But one thing is, I don't know what Orlando's doing. I have no idea what direction they're trying to do it. Take this ship, because it feels like they're at the bottom and they're not looking to rebuild. I know they brought in Paolo Banchero and they might just, wait and see what works out for him. But I feel like you got that first pick. Go on to free agency. Try and make some moves. I mean, we have some guys out there right now that, could really, start benefiting a team. I mean, Enes Freedom, now changed the last name, unrestricted free agent, was with Houston last year. That can give you great minutes, especially coming off the bench. Dennis Smith Jr. is available, Michael Carter-Williams. The list goes on and on. And if I'm working with the Magic right now, I'm looking to see who is out there. Tristan Thompson, right now, unrestricted free agent. Good guy to bring in. Dennis Schroeder's going to be available. Colin Sexton's a restricted free agent. But if I'm the Magic, I would love to put Colin Sexton next to Paolo Banchero. I'd be trying to make that move. They're going to have cap space. They're letting Mo Bamba walk, bringing in somebody new. Put the young bull next to Banchero and see what happens, because they're going to have cap space, probably more cap space than the Cavs can afford. So make that move. Cavs looking at about $18.5 million. They can easily counter with the $23, $24, $25 million contract at this point. Orlando, they're stuck in the mud, and it doesn't feel to me that they're trying to move themselves out of it too much. Kyle Anderson will be signing with the Minnesota Timberwolves, 2-year, $18 million deal. Good deal for the Timberwolves, good deal for Anderson. We'll see if he can step back up. DeLon Wright, though, moving on, I believe, from the Grizzlies. He will be signing with the Washington Wizards, $16 million 2-year deal. Once again, a shooting guard who they re-signed in Bradley Beal and brought in with Johnny Davis, who I imagine they're probably going to move to the 3 spot, play small forward rather than shooting guard. I know they're looking for scoring. DeLon Wright can do that, but it's an okay move. Not my favorite. Pardon me, DeLon Wright was with the Atlanta Hawks this last season. Brought in 4.4 points a game, but he's a steady shooter, and he's got good defense. Probably the reason they bring him in here. I was thinking of Dylan Brooks. Wrong guy. And hold on one second. We may have a nope, pardon me. Thought we had some breaking news coming out, but not the case. So we'll get back to it. So next up on the list, we got Andre Drummond, former Cavalier, signed a tiny contract with the Chicago Bulls, 2 years, $6.6 million. So $3.33 million for 2 years for Andre Drummond. That's a steal for Chicago. I mean, you're bringing in a guy that on any given night can drop 20-20s. I know he doesn't impact winning the way a lot of teams would like, but when you got a team like Chicago right now really building up towards the future, bringing in a guy like Drummond to just kind of play that center role, especially a backup center, come off the bench and still potentially drop a double-double, that's a great move for Chicago. Minnesota Timberwolves did pull off a big extension, bringing back Karl Anthony Towns, 4-year, $224 million Supermax. Great deal for them. That deal begins in 2024-25 season. So at the moment, his contract is a 6-year, $295 million deal. And for Minnesota, that's worth it. Karl-Anthony Towns is a stud up there. They're not going to get any better than that, especially not at the center position. He's one of the best centers in the game today. And at the end of the day, he puts butts in seats in Minnesota. And with a small market team like that, that's what you're looking for. So I like it. I did talk about Nikola Jokic, 5-year, $270 Supermax contract. Oh, and here we are. Ja Morant did agree to a rookie max extension with the Memphis Grizzlies, 5-year, $193 million, which is awesome. I wish I could be getting paid that much to play basketball. Fortunately, I'm not that good. But it's a great move there. I talked about it a little bit earlier. You have some smaller contracts below them. It gives you that flexibility to give Ja Morant a big contract like that, as they might have. Nope. Keep getting notifications here. Keep thinking Woj is going to give us something new to talk about, but not yet. Not yet. So not so fast. Devin Booker agreed to a 4-year, $224 million extension. As we were kind of talking about the Suns yesterday, looking to move on from DeAndre Ayton, Devin Booker, to me, he now needs to take that next step. He has been really good. We've seen flashes of that greatness that every star needs to have. He feels like he's turning the corner. He's coming off a season averaging almost 27 points a game. It was his highest in his career. Shot a career-high three-point percentage, career-high rebounds. Assists came down a little bit this year, but that's because Chris Paul was running the offense. Career-high in steals and a career-high in blocks. It was a great season for Devin Booker. Probably the reason why he earned that contract. Since 2015, his numbers have only gone up practically every single year. Only saw a drop in 2020. That was had a few less minutes, was dealing with some injuries, I believe, throughout. So saw a little bit of decline there in that COVID season. But back in 2021, jumped right into it. He's looking good, but I still feel he needs to take another step in his game because the stats are there and he has a great team around him. But they haven't won, and that's the thing. When I see these max extensions, especially the super max thrown on there, what have you done to deserve that? And obviously, I mean, number 1 seed last year, or in these recent playoffs, number 1 year before, was in an NBA Finals game, but they didn't win it, which seems minimal. But at some point, when you see these max extensions just get thrown to everybody, I start getting a little nitpicky. What have you really done to deserve that? And Devin Booker might have more of a case than Nikola Jokic to get that big contract overall because he has been more successful as a team. And when you talk about NBA, it is not an individualized sport. You need to have a good team because we've seen great players get stuck at the bottom because they have no team around them. And you've seen completely average teams with really no superstar. Boston in this last season, they didn't have a superstar. They had a couple of young growing stars. I mean, those guys are still 24, 23 years old. And they were in the NBA Finals because they had a great team. Devin Booker's had a great team. He's a great player. Now that he's got this big contract, he's got to earn that. Earn that out there. Get back to the NBA Finals. Avoid those upsets like we saw in this year's playoffs, and they got to win. That's simple as that. I know it's not simple at all because they got one hell of a Western Conference to go through at the moment, but they need something. Coming in just a little bit before the show this morning, Cleveland, we got Ricky Rubio back. I love it. Ricky was that guy. We traded him to the Pacers during the end of the trade deadline, sent him over there. He was an expiring contract. We brought in Karis LeVert, and now we get him right back. It feels like Cleveland barely lost anything to acquire Karis LeVert at this point. So I love it right now to have Rubio back. He's I believe, 3-year deal is what I was hearing, I believe. So to have that 3 years now, he's going to be behind Darius Garland, continuing to push him. Rubio said when he came to Cleveland, his goal was to make Darius Garland better than he was the season before. And now you're going to have 3 more seasons of that. Can you imagine what Darius Garland may be at that point? His passing ability, outside shooting ability, we've already seen take huge jumps. Putting Rubio back behind him, I think is huge. I mean, when we sent Rubio away, I know he had a torn ACL at that point. He was going to be gone anyways. But when we sent him over to the Pacers at that point, I think the Cavs locker room as a whole kind of took a little bit of a dip. Injuries built up, and nobody was kind of in there to keep everybody together. I think Rubio is that guy to do just that. I love move back. Bruce Brown signed $13 million deal over 2 years with the Denver Nuggets. Mitchell Robinson re-signed with the New York Knicks, $60 million, 4-year contract. He's a great center, very physical guy, 6'10", 6'11" build. And for a team like the Knicks, they need to continue to lock things down. We've seen a couple of good moves already for them, bringing in Jalen Brunson, bringing back Mitchell Robinson. You're going to put together a Knicks team this year that I have no small, feeling that they're going to be right back in the playoff mix. I know they've been a little up and down, shaky. They're 100% not a team you can ever rely on. They were just in, the lottery. They traded the pick away to Oklahoma City after taking Usman Dang from the New Zealand Breakers. They didn't get any first-round draft picks this year. But out of that, they're showing confidence in the squad they have right now. So bringing back Mitchell Robinson, huge. Theo Pinson returns to the Dallas Mavericks, just a filler player at that point. And San Antonio Spurs, as expected, are releasing Danilo Gallinari. Looking like at the moment he's going to try and make his way up to Boston. So a good move over there. Boston's going to get another big player to come out of it. Yusuf Nurkic has re-signed with the Portland Trailblazers, 4-year, $70 million deal. I talked about Portland earlier. They're holding on to whatever's left of their big run that they've had, and we'll see what comes out of it. I don't see much more. I feel like they've already kind of hit their peak. They traded away McCollum. I think at that point, it was the beginning of the end for the Portland Trailblazers run. They've been kind of milking it down at the bottom half of the Western Conference recently. I like bringing it back. Nurkic is a great center, all in all. But at the same time, I think you do have to start looking towards the future if you're Portland, because they're going to get caught up in the past and everyone's going to pass them by. We'll see what happens out of it. But maybe the biggest signing, I know I mentioned one earlier, but maybe biggest signing of today at least, John Wall. He's going to the LA Clippers on a 2-year, $13.2 million contract. We're talking about a guy a couple of years ago, or just last year, who was out there with a $30 million contract playing for the Houston Rockets, and now he's signing for under $7 million to go play with the LA Clippers. They got a steal there. The only problem I have right now with this move to the Clippers now have 3 guys. Their big 3 are all maybe the most injury-prone guys in the NBA today. Kawhi Leonard has been nursing a knee injury his entire career. And it goes from great to bad in a moment's notice. You have no idea what you're getting out of Kawhi Leonard on any given day. You don't know if he's going to be there. When he is, he's a great basketball player, an amazing work ethic. But his knee injury alone makes you wary to bring in another guy injury prone. And then he got Paul George, who, great player with Indiana. But since his move out, he had that one good season with the Clippers. I think the other 3 he's been there, 2 or 3, they've been good when he's played, but he doesn't see a lot of time because he's also injured, because he's older and he has bad knees. NBA players, after a while, their knees give out. And you're seeing that with all 3 of these guys. Now you're bringing in John Wall, a guy that spent the last 4 or 5 years majority injured with the injuries. So, it might go from the LA Clippers to, the LA Crutches. because everyone's going to need some help walking, because you just put together maybe the most injury-prone big three in the history of basketball. Drew Eubanks will also return to the Portland Trailblazers. Cleveland, just before the show got going, brought in free agent center Robin Lopez on a one-year deal. Had a couple of spots open. They brought in Rubio and Robin Lopez. Lopez probably not going to see too much time, dwindling down in his career, but he's a great guy to have in the locker room. The culture he brings in, he's always been known as a great locker room guy. So that's definitely a contributing cause why they brought him in. And I imagine one of the big reasons as well, they kind of need a backup center. Moses Brown and Ed Davis both, I believe, hit free agency and aren't being looked at to be brought back just yet. So probably the biggest reason to bring him in. But they also drafted Khalifa Diop in the second round, who, if I had to guess, would probably get the jump into that second spot in the rotation. And you'll have Robin Lopez probably fighting time with him to get that secondary center spot. We'll see the way JV Bickerstaff goes. And obviously, summer league and summer camps are a huge test of what potentially is going to be coming out of this. And another big one just before the show got going, Atlanta traded Kevin Huerter to Sacramento for Justin Holiday and Mo Harkless and a future first-round pick in the 2024 draft. It will be a lottery-protected pick, so if it's in the lottery, stays with the Kings, but then the 2025 pick would go to the Hawks. But that one has a top 12 protection on it, so if it's in the top 12 of the lottery, it once again stays with the Kings. 2026, it becomes a top 10 protected. And then if that one still goes to the Kings, then 2027, the Hawks would finally get that first round pick. Seems like a very long drawn out process. Obviously, the Kings are kind of in a rebuild mode. I think the Huerter move is a little odd because of where they're rebuilding to, but I think the Kings have made a lot of odd moves. And they're moving on from Justin Holiday and Mo Harkless, who really didn't bring them much. But I think the fact that they gave up the first-round pick to get Huerter, they really like what he's got and what he brings to the table. I like it too. The only problem is I feel like they gave up a lot for a guy that's not your star. You're bringing in a great role guy, a great starting role guy, I should say, because he's a phenomenal shooting guard. Great. Probably one of the best young shooting guards we have in the game, if not just one of the top 10 guards in the NBA today. I have no problem saying he's top 10 guard in the NBA actually right now. But he's still not the guy that leads the team. We've seen him lead a game, but not for a season. So we'll see what that turns into here for the Kings. Don't love it, don't hate it. But we had another trade as well just before the show, and was pretty much the final thing that's happened. We haven't had any Woj bombs since the start of the show, but the Celtics have made their move. They have acquired Malcolm Brogdon from the Indiana Pacers in a trade that dealt Daniel Tice, Aaron Naismith, and a first-round pick next year to Indiana. I love the move for Indiana. They're clearing some cap space out. They're sending guys away. They're going full rebuild mode here, it looks like. I like the move at this point to get a young Naismith. Tice potentially could just be a release immediately. Not sure if they really need that position, but Malcolm Brogdon to Boston, that's a phenomenal move for Boston. They needed the point guard. Now you brought him in, and you barely had to get anything. You barely had to get rid of anything to get it. Really, all they lost was a first-round pick. Tice and Naismith were role guys who they're probably going to go find here in free agency and barely, have to spend a dime. I mean, right now, let's just go look. What centers? I mean, Ennis Freedom, Frank Kaminsky, Cody Zeller, Thomas Bryant, Tristan Thompson, Boogie Cousins, JaVale McGee, Greg Monroe, Isaiah Hartenstein, LaMarcus Aldridge, Mo Bamba, and Ed Davis out there. Bull is available, I believe, still at the moment. So there's a lot of room to go look out for some more centers now at this point for Boston, and they're looking for a backup center. So that's one thing to look at. But that's got us caught up on the NBA free agency so far. I'm sure we're going to get back from the weekend, and everything is going to be flipped upside down. Expect a ton more at this point over the weekend. And of course, as the show got started, Twitter decided to finally calm down, and all the free agent moves have halted for the last 35 minutes as we started the show. So that's wonderful. And, on that note, we're going to move things over into baseball at the moment because we are in a new month. About 4th of July, All-Star break is right around the corner. It's coming up here very soon for the MLB. In fact, July 19th. So we're a little under 3 weeks away from MLB All-Star game out there in LA. I believe it's Los Angeles this year. We're going to go LA because I believe that's where it is. So, 18 days away from the LA All-Star game. And with that, I'd like to take a look at the last month because in June we made some predictions what our moves were going to be throughout baseball, and I think it's interesting to go kind of back and look at that. So you go from this, we'll start AL East here, and at the start of June, number 1 team was the Yankees, 2 was Toronto, 3 was Tampa, 4 was Boston, 5 was Baltimore. You look at it now, and out of all the divisions, this is the one that's changed the most. New York still out in first. They have had an absolutely phenomenal month. 22 wins to just 6 losses. They played 28 games and won 22 of them. That's phenomenal. They won almost 80% of the time in the month of June. That's a great number. Their win percentage overall, by the way, 72.7%. That is an astronomically high number. This is the Yankees team, by the way, this is what they were supposed to be the last 4 years, probably. And they're finally hitting their stride here, and it's great for baseball. I know everybody hates the Yankees, and good. You're supposed to hate the Yankees. They're the bad guy. They've always been the bad guy in baseball. They are that team. Cream of the crop. You only hate them because you hate them. And they do it perfectly. Boston's moved into second, though, which I love to see. They've really been turning things up. Now 43-33. They lost 6 games as well, by the way, winning 19 along this last month. So just, 19-6. Phenomenal run for them. They were a team under 500 to start off the month of June. They've completely flipped things around. Now 10 games over 500 and 12 and a half games back from first place of the AL East. But they have a 2.5 game lead right now for the wild card spot, which is a great spot to be in, I believe. So third place, Toronto. They haven't really fallen off, but they haven't really grown. They're about the same spot they were. They came into the month 59.2 win percentage. It's dropped slightly down to They came in with a 59.2% win percentage, exited with a 56.6% win percentage. Didn't really drop off that much. Team that did, however, drop off a decent bit was the Tampa Bay Race. They were a team that was third place and just 5.5 games back from the Yankees in first. Now they are 15 games back with a 53.3% win percentage. Not great. And maybe the one bright spot, Baltimore, not out of it yet. They may survive to the All-Star break. They are only 6 games out from the wild card, despite being 5th place. And 5th place in their division, I should say. And out of every team that I think farther back right now in their respective races has a shot to make the postseason, they're probably on a pretty short list of teams that have an actual shot being back 6 games because they brought up their young guys and they've actually been competitive. They need a much better bullpen, and that's the short end of it. They still need more runs, more hits. They still need a lot more, but we've seen it. It's a slow build right now for Baltimore, but it feels like they are going somewhere. We'll see what happens. AL Central didn't see a ton of movement. Detroit and Kansas City stayed in their spots. Both Detroit dropped their win percentage down by 0.008, and Kansas City actually bumped theirs up a little bit. They were 327 to start the month. They're up to 365. Still bad teams. Chicago and Cleveland, though, did flip. Minnesota remains at the top of the division. And Cleveland, though, they were 5 games back to start out the month. Now they're a singular game back from Minnesota. And if they hadn't been so roller coaster-esque this season, they could very well be in first place. Maybe the most important thing right now for Cleveland, they've been winning on the road. They are 2019 on the road. And so long to me as you keep a winning record on the road, you're going to have yourself a good season. But little movement in the AL Central so far. AL West, kind of seeing the same thing out there. Houston still sits in first place. But, as I said, Texas was going to make the move. They came in to June under 500. They remain under 500, but they're in second place. The AL West sucks. I mean, they aren't good. They have one team over 500, which is why I gave Texas my dark horse, because I looked at how terrible the AL West was going to be. Dark horse to potentially make the playoffs, probably the wild card spot, in which they're 3.5 games behind, by the way. They're there. They're right there. They got a good chance. They get a good month of July, anything can happen for the Rangers. I'm loving it. But with how bad this division was, this thing's still wide open. And maybe the most surprising thing, the Angels, man, they still haven't turned it back around. They were on a slide going into June, and they've kept sliding. They came in with a win percentage of 54%. That is down to 47.4%. So a huge decrease for the Angels. Seattle and Oakland, they keep chugging along. Seattle actually has shown some improvements. They've gotten their differential back into the positive, which is good. They're scoring more runs. Stuff is starting to come to them. They're on a 3-game win streak, 8-2 in their last 10. Doing pretty okay. But they do have a shot to overtake the Angels here in just the next couple of days, because the Angels are taking on Houston and Seattle's taking on Oakland. So, wonderful spot. And it's at home. And they've been slightly better at home than they have been on the road. They can jump right now to start July into third place in the AL West and send an absolutely loaded Angels down to fourth. Mind-boggling at this point. Maybe the biggest surprise, though, is the National League in baseball. There has been no movement. We went an entire month and not one position changed in all of the National League. The NL East is still the Mets, Atlanta, Philly, Miami, Washington, which is the same exact order it was a month ago. Same for the Central and same for the West. It's amazing that hasn't moved at all, because we always talk about that June stretch going up to the 4th of July. You don't always see a lot of movement, but you normally see some movement, and there was none. No movement to be had in the National League, and he gave it props to some really good teams. Give props to some bad teams as well, because Atlanta's in second place of the NL East with 24 wins and a run differential of -10. And they've also had one of the easiest schedules in baseball. And they're still that bad and still in second place. 4 games back from the wild card. Philadelphia, they had a nice run going. It's gone. Miami, it was a nice start to the season. They got a good run differential. They're pitching for the Miami. Marvelous. Gotta love the pitching right now for Miami. However, they can't score. They need hits, and they don't have them. Washington, once again, disappointment. And they need something. They need to turn things around down there, because, I mean, we were just talking not that long ago. This is a team that won the World Series. I believe, less than 5 years ago at this point. And now here they are with a 34.6% win percentage and a run differential of negative 76, which is the third worst in baseball. They are just ahead of Kansas City, who is at negative 77, and the Pittsburgh Pirates, who are also negative 77. Over in the NL Central, once again, no movement. Milwaukee, they've done just fine. They have done what I think we all expected Milwaukee to do. They've been the best team in a really crappy NL Central these last 3-4 years. Doesn't really seem like it's changing at this point. St. Louis has given them a run for their monies, and St. Louis looks to be a team that can probably take a wild card spot. I'm not confident with what they're going to do with that wild card spot because they've been playing through the maybe easiest division in baseball. Maybe, potentially. We'll see. We'll see how it goes in this next month. But St. Louis, they've been good. Their run differential is good. They're winning at home. They're winning on the road. But they're also playing a pretty easy division. So, Pittsburgh Pirates, once again, I'm giving them some credit here. Third place in the Central. That's where Mike said he thought they were going to be. He wanted them in third place this year with a chance for second. That's what they got. They're 8.5 games back from St. Louis. That's one good run from them, one bad run from St. Louis. The only problem is, much as I was saying, Washington can't score. Pittsburgh can't score even worse. They got that run differential, negative 77. Decent pitching, 251 runs allowed. But runs scored, 174. Washington was 206. Kansas City was 182. And there's only, I believe, one team in all of baseball worse at scoring runs than the Pittsburgh Pirates. And that's the Detroit Tigers, because they have only 143, which is awful, by the way. At this point in the season, they have that few runs. I know Pittsburgh's been bringing up a lot of guys, and that's been helping a lot. I know if Mike was here, he'd be defending the heck out of it, and rightfully so, because these young guys they've been bringing up from their farm system have really been kicking things into high gear. And their offense, give credit where credit is due, has been turning around, but they're still having those days where nothing is going right for them. And they've been good recently, 3-game win streak, 6 out of their last 10 they've won. It feels like Pittsburgh's going in the right direction, but, at the same time, that direction is still pretty flat. Came into the month with a win percentage of .449. Now they're down at .408. It's fine. Cubs and Cincinnati, probably not going to be threatening much. Cubs have been right behind Pittsburgh, but doesn't really feel like it matters. Over in the NL West, it feels like the Dodgers probably have this thing locked up, despite the fact that they're only 2.5 games ahead of the San Diego Padres. But they've looked untouchable. Run differential right now of plus 131, which is now just 19 below the Yankees. San Diego, their pitching can't compete to the Dodgers, and even their bats are less than. But for whatever reason, the Dodgers, this season, the Dodgers and Yankees just seem destined to finally meet each other in the World Series. I doubt it'll happen because, one of them is going to mess up somewhere along the road. But at this point in the season, I almost just want to go, all right, call it. We got a lot of bad teams. Give me top 4 teams in baseball. I'll do Yankees and Houston, or Yankees versus Houston. And then in the NL, give me the Mets versus the Dodgers. Winner of those games go to the World Series. Forget the rest at this point. Milwaukee has a good record because they're playing the NL Central. Probably could say the same about the NL East and probably the same about Houston. We got a lot of top-heavy teams at the moment. Hopefully, the July 4th stretch can turn some things around, but I'm not overly confident in it for baseball. And let's see, when's the trade deadline? So we still got another month until trade deadline that hits August 2nd. So we'll see what the moves are. I mean, next month is a big one across baseball, and we'll see what comes out of it. I'm hoping for some big noise because I think baseball needs something. We're in a spot right now where a lot of stagnicity, especially in the National League. Something's got to happen. Something's got to break here. I don't know what it's going to be. I don't know when it's going to be. I don't know who it's going to be. But someone needs to make some noise. I hope it's Cleveland. Hell, I'd be okay if it was Pittsburgh. You know, we'll let Mike and I know a couple of you viewers and boss DJ Oakley, all Pittsburgh fans. I'd love to see Pittsburgh be the one to make some noise. They need some noise over there. They've been quiet. We don't know what sports team is going to be the one to look at here at the moment because Penguins, great season, but they're getting older. Steelers just got rid of their big guy, Big Ben. They still got a great team coming back. They should be fine. Should be. And the Pirates, mid-tier, 22 and 29. They're okay. Not great, not bad. If anything, attendance should be going up for them, though, because they're finally winning a little bit more than they have been. So we'll see what happens going on with that. And the Pac-12 actually just issued a statement regarding the USC-UCLA move. And this is the official statement that came out half an hour ago from the Pac-12 conference. The Pac-12 board of directors met this morning and authorized the conference to explore all expansion options. The 10 university presidents and chancellors remain committed to a shared mission of academic and athletic excellence on behalf of all our student athletes. I like it because I don't think it's any stranger that they do need to bring in some new guys because they're the Pac-12. We're in a conference time right now. 10 guys in a conference probably ain't going to get it done. You need big conferences in football at the moment, and it should be a good spot to move here. And, once again, I like talking about the Mountain West and bringing a couple of those teams over. I think right now the Pac-12 has a chance to move to the Pac-14, and I think they need to because the Pac-12 at the moment in football has one championship. And that came all the way back with Colorado. And I believe the 50s or 60s. It's been a long time since the Pac-12 has won a title in football. Now, over in basketball and baseball and elsewhere, they got some good noise. But I think it's a very real possibility we see some change-ups. And I think the most obvious team to bring in, San Diego State. They have shown excellence and sustained excellence. That's the group you want to bring into the Pac-12. Plus, they're good in basketball, too. So you got to replace USC and UCLA somehow. That's a good one to bring in. Fresno State, possible because they've been up there. Boise State, potential to bring in just because of name recognition alone to bring in. I think would be a good one to potentially make that move to. Out of the American, obviously the American's going to be losing a few guys. You could potentially see the entire thing come crashing down. I know regions aren't necessarily right, but a team like Memphis, I know that's in Tennessee, that's a long way, or maybe SMU, bring the Mustangs in, wouldn't be the worst because they can reach a different market, something that every conference is now doing. They're reaching out of their own time zones. We're going into some new regions of the country. And I wouldn't hate to see the Pac-12 do it because I feel at some extent they're falling into a little bit of irrelevance now with these moves. And another one, go down into the Conference USA, the Road Runners of University of Texas San Antonio. Once again, a decent basketball program, good football program. They were 12-2 this last year. I like a potential switch up there as well. Out of the independents, it's BYU. BYU has to be the team the Pac-12 is looking to bring in. They have been great. They've started sending people to the NFL. They look to have consistency. And that's what this conference needs bad, is some consistency because they have none. So, handful of teams to bring in. Utah State, San Diego State, Fresno. Options are pretty open. So I think a lot of teams right now would be very much interested in joining that Pac-12, especially those smaller ones, because there's a lot of room for growth, and you're really only going to have 2, maybe 3 super difficult games. We'll see how Washington bounces back this year. Obviously, Rose Bowl appearance 2 years ago, bad season last year. We'll see what ends up out of it for them. But Utah and Oregon are the only 2 good teams right now. And obviously, UCLA and USC weren't great to begin with in football, but they lost elsewhere with those moves. But USC looked like they were going to be coming back. And now, Oregon's probably the Pac-12 championship pretty much set at this point of Oregon versus Utah. We'll see what USC does, because this doesn't take place until 2024. So we got 2 seasons to go with the Pac-12 in its current state. But Pac-12 needs help. And I don't think they can sit around and wait for it. They need to just jump on it. Jump on it now, just like you've seen every conference do. Pac-12 is exploring options. Big Ten was exploring theirs. They're still looking potentially, Big Ten is, to bring in Notre Dame. That has always been the key piece that they've missed out of the Midwest. That's the one Midwest school that has not joined the Big Ten, is Notre Dame. And the rivalries there, the matchups are there. It's something that would be mutually beneficial for both sides in the long run, I think. So we'll see what comes out of it. But I must say, I love the addition of USC and UCLA to the Big Ten. And it might be time to finally rebrand, because it's going to become the Big Ten that actually has 16 teams. And it wouldn't be that hard, because currently, they go with the Big Ten Network logo or Big Ten logo. They got the B, then a 1, and then a G. Just flip that G into a little bit of a 6. Complete that a roundabout on the end of it. Perfect. Big Ten Network or Big Ten Conference becomes Big 16 Conference. I know it doesn't have the same great ring. It's not the Big Ten. Big Ten sounds great. Big Ten, yes. But we're almost double that at this point, so might need a little bit of a change. We'll see what comes out of it. I don't make those decisions. I just talk about them. And, of course, just as we're about to wrap up the show, Twitter's back on. Here comes Woj. Right now, breaking news out of NBA free agency. Kevon Looney has agreed to a 3-year, $25.5 million deal to stay with Golden State. And on that note, I will, unfortunately, have to leave things at that. I've been Alec Caberna. This is another week. Oh, hold on. No, I need highlights of the week. I haven't been here in a while. I got to go highlights of the week. I'm going to go NBA free agency and USC and UCLA joining the Big Ten. That's what I got there. Meatheads of the week. Oh, boy. We're going to go Matt Morrison, because he didn't send me one. But that's going to do it here. I'm Alec Caberna. Power Hour coming up next on your sports network. I'll see you next week.